She waited, with hands trembling slightly, for something that never arrived. She told herself, maybe they forgot, maybe they were busy, maybe this time, it would be different, but deep down, she knew they hadn't forgotten. They had chosen to erase her, from a celebration she helped build, from a family she once held together, from a memory she would now never share. No one had to say it out loud. Silence had done the job. A wedding she dreamed about since childhood would happen, without her tears, her smile, or her blessing. Pain doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just whispers, and sits in the corner, quietly watching you break. And when they posted the pictures, with perfect smiles, perfect dresses, perfect lies, she didn't cry. She just remembered the girl she once was, the one who gave everything, for a family that gave nothing in return. That was the day something inside her changed, not with noise, but with finality, because sometimes, the door they close on you is the one you needed to walk away from forever. And sometimes dignity doesn't scream, it just walks away, with its head held high. The beginning of the rift, she was the eldest, the quiet anchor, the one who always stayed behind. Her name was Clara, and her world had always revolved around others, never herself. She raised her younger brother, Ryan, when their parents were too tired, too distracted, to absent. She packed his school lunches, bandaged his scraped knees, listened to his endless dreams, and called them beautiful. She defended him when he messed up, covered for him when he got into trouble, and stood in the shadows when he succeeded. She never asked for anything, not recognition, not thanks, not even love, just belonging. But as Ryan grew, so did the gap between them. Quiet at first, then cruel, he became everything the family adored. Charming, ambitious, and loudly successful, Clara became what they forgot: gentle, reliable, and invisible. When their father passed away, it was Clara who handled the arrangements, who sat beside their mother, who took and paid leave. Ryan flew in the morning of the funeral and left before sunset. No one questioned it. They were too busy praising his suit, his speech, his success. Clara stood beside his shadow again, smiling, quietly breaking inside. She thought time would heal it, but time was crueler than people. The wedding no one told her about. One morning, Clara scrolled through her phone, sipping tea, still half asleep. She stopped mid-scroll, her breath catching, her heart stumbling. There it was, a photo. Ryan, her brother, in a tuxedo, smiling beside a woman in white. Confetti fell like rain, and so did Claire's illusions. She stared at the screen, not believing it, not accepting it. Her brother had gotten married, and she wasn't invited. She refreshed the screen, hoping it was a mistake, an engagement, a photo shoot, anything but the truth. But comment after comment proved otherwise. Congratulations, Ryan and Hannah. Finally, you two are perfect, perfect, Clara thought, but apparently not complete. Not once had she received a call, a message, a hint. She put the phone down slowly, deliberately, as if it were burning her skin. Her mother hadn't said a word, neither had any of the aunts or cousins. She had been erased surgically, intentionally, like a stain they didn't want on the family portrait. She stared out the window for hours, not crying, not speaking, just existing. Some heartbreaks don't make noise, they just settle like dust, thick, heavy, and hard to clean. The truth behind the betrayal. Clara finally picked up the phone and called her mother. There was no hello, just a startled pause, followed by a sigh. I found out about the wedding, Clara said, voice steady, heartbreak hidden. Her mother replied, I didn't think you'd want to come. Like that. The blame was hers, the erasure justified. Why wouldn't I want to come? Clara asked, already knowing the answer. Ryan thought, it'd be uncomfortable, with you not being close to Hannah. Close? Clara whispered, I never even got the chance. The silence that followed was louder than any apology. She hung up, not in anger, but in finality. That night, Clara opened a box under her bed, full of old letters, childhood photos, drawings Ryan made. She stared at them, not with nostalgia, but with clarity. She saw the pattern now. She had always loved harder, given more, and expected less. And they had taken everything she gave, until there was nothing left of her. In their world, the wedding wasn't just an event she missed. It was the line they had drawn, the wall they had built. And she finally understood they had never seen her. Not really. Something broke. Something awoke. 2 weeks later, Claire received a parcel. No note, no return address, just a glossy wedding Album. She opened it slowly, turning each page like it was a wound. Ryan laughing, their mother dancing, speeches being made. She was in none of them. She closed the album and placed it on her shelf, not as a keepsake, but as evidence of who they were and who she had become. She called her lawyer the next morning. I want to review the family trust, she said, and I want to take back what's mine. The lawyer hesitated, then agreed. Clara had never touched her father's inheritance, choosing instead to let her mother manage it for the family. She had been too kind, too trusting. But now, kindness felt like betrayal of herself. As she dug deeper, she discovered quiet injustices, loans made in her name, property documents altered, savings used without consent. She wasn't just excluded from the wedding. She had been used, silenced, and dismissed. But not anymore. Dignity isn't loud, but it is sharp, and Clara's silence was now a sword. The night was silent, colder than usual. She whispered, her arms wrapped tight around her shaking body. The stars blinked above her, far and unreachable, while her thoughts screamed loud inside her soul. She wasn't just excluded from a wedding. She realized she was erased by the people she loved. The betrayal wasn't about the event itself. It was about the message they so clearly sent. You're not one of us anymore, was the sentence, written between every silence and smile. No phone call, no text, no explanation, just silence. Like she didn't even exist anymore. The sofa felt harder than usual. As she sat there, staring at nothing but pain, she picked up the framed photo, the one from when they were kids, laughing endlessly. Her fingers trembled as she touched it, almost expecting the glass to break. Like her heart. Why didn't they want her there? Was the question echoing again and again without mercy? Had she done something wrong, unforgivable? Or was her existence simply an inconvenience? In their eyes, her brother, her blood, her first friend, chose celebration without her, as if she died. It wasn't just about the wedding. It was about the hierarchy of hearts she never fit into, the forgotten years she remembered, her childhood birthdays, where she saved cake slices for her little brother's return. She'd wait by the window for him, even when he was too busy to come. When he scraped his knee once, she gave up her band-aid. Hiding her own bleeding thumb, she'd walked him to school in rain, just so he wouldn't be late or scared. But memory was a fickle friend, and gratitude a stranger, to some hearts forever. He had outgrown her love somewhere, between status updates and his fianki's cold instructions. His new life didn't have space for the sister who once sang him lullabies. The message. She sat up suddenly, grabbed her phone, and opened her brother's message. Again. Sorry you couldn't be there. It read, like a scratch on an already bleeding wound. We kept it small. Hope you understand. No apology, no empathy, just formal indifference. She laughed bitterly at the screen, as if it could understand the ache inside her. Understand? She muttered. Do you understand what you just did to me, brother? You didn't forget me, she said. You chose to remove me. And now you want it quiet, as if silence will clean the stain of betrayal. But silence does not fix betrayal. It only deepens the wound into bone and blood. The letter that changed everything the next day brought an unexpected letter, folded neatly in an ivory envelope. No stamp. She turned it over in her hands, hesitant to open what smelled of family secrets. It was from Aunt Miriam, the one relative who always spoke truth, even when it burned. My dear child, it began. I heard what happened, and I can't stay quiet anymore. There are things you deserve to know, the letter continued, truths they've buried for years from you. Your parents and your brother, Aunt Miriam wrote, have long considered you dispensable. You weren't invited not by mistake, the letter confessed, but because they wanted her side to shine. She told them you were drama, that you'd bring in wanted attention, and past wounds, and they listened. They agreed. They erased you. Miriam's words like knives across her chest. She dropped the letter, hands trembling, breath shallow, tears dry and sharp in her throat. So this was it, she whispered, a calculated exile, not a careless oversight. The quiet rebellion that night. She didn't cry, she didn't scream, she didn't throw the picture frame. She wrote instead, not to them, but to herself, her dignity, her future. You are not forgotten, she wrote. You are not invisible. You are not weak. They may exclude you from tables, but they can't keep you from building your own. You don't need a seat there when you are capable of building entire rooms elsewhere. She began clearing her apartment, not out of grief, but out of preparation for change. Books packed, old clothes donated, furniture moved. The rebirth had quietly begun. No dramatic goodbye letters sent, no revenge plans scribbled in rage and lipstick, just clarity, soft as dawn, washing over her wounds, sealing them like healed scars. The new invitation 3 days later, her phone buzzed again, this time with a number she didn't recognize. She answered, half curious, half hollow, and heard a soft voice say, "Hi, it's Melissa." Melissa, her cousin, estranged by distance, but now reaching out like a lifeline. "I wasn't invited either," Melissa said, "and I know why, and I'm sorry. You didn't deserve this," she whispered. "No one should be discarded by blood. Some of us noticed your absence," she continued, "and we don't agree with what happened. We're organizing a reunion," she said, "and this time, we're inviting the right people." The call ended with a new light, flickering gently in her soul, a hint of warmth. She wasn't as alone as she thought, and her silence had made more noise than their event. The shift in the weeks that followed. She didn't obsess over their wedding photos or fake smiles. She focused on herself, her goals, her therapy, her art, her own healing pace. She signed up for a class, learned pottery, and turned clay into something more than earth. Every pot she made, she carved the word worthy into its base. Before firing it, she didn't speak their names anymore, not out of hate, but from emotional detachment earned. They didn't exist in her new chapter, just footnotes in the preface of her growth. The encounter. Months passed until she saw them again. In a cafe by accident, across the room. Her brother looked older, guiltier, and his wife glanced away the moment eyes met hers. They didn't approach her, nor she them, but the silence carried a deeper message now. It said, "We know you see us, but more importantly, we now see you." She left the cafe smiling gently, not from revenge, but from peace. Only survivors understand. Not everyone gets closure from apologies, but she got it from self-worth and quiet strength. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Silence remained her companion. The pain hadn't left her heart, but something had shifted within. No more tears soaked her pillow. No more memories played in loops. Amara had begun to see the world, not for what it was, but for what she could make it. She didn't want revenge in flames. She wanted justice in silence, because silence, when it walks with dignity, roars louder than screams. One morning, she walked into her late grandmother's law firm, quietly determined, carrying a file, a pen, and her inheritance documents. The receptionist, once familiar, blinked in surprise, then softened with guilt. "Miss Amara," she said slowly, "we didn't expect." "I'm not here for expectations," Amara replied, her voice calm, steady, cold. "I'm here for what's mine," she continued, placing the file gently on the desk, like a verdict sealed by time. That file contained documents, undisclosed shares, land certificates, heirlooms, and the codicil her grandmother had added to her will months before passing. Codicils that Caleb had accidentally buried in storage documents. That changed everything. They proved Amara wasn't just a daughter left out. She was the named successor for 40% of the family estate, and legally, that meant she had power and rights over everything her brother now flaunted. She didn't want to take everything, only what was just, what was written. What was earned through blood, not betrayal. Her grandmother's signature inked those papers, dated, witnessed, notarized. They could scream, they could threaten, but they couldn't erase that ink. When the lawyer reviewed the documents, his brows furrowed. "These changed the whole execution of the estate," he said slowly. "And if you want, Miss Amara, we can serve them a notice immediately." "I don't want them humiliated," she whispered, "just informed. Let them know their empire has cracks," she added, standing tall, more graceful than she had ever been. Caleb's wife was the first to react. She showed up at Amara's door, a knock like thunder, dressed in designer gilt. "Why are you doing this now?" she spat, eyes wide. "Because you did what you did then," Amara replied, her tone like ice melting slowly over fire. "You shut me out," she added, her voice lowering. "You erased me like a smudge on your wedding portrait. Now I'm redrawing the canvas," she whispered, and closed the door. The next week, Caleb received the official letter. It wasn't dramatic, no bold fonts, no screaming, just the truth, printed clearly, wrapped in legal boundaries, tied with signatures. "She's coming for her share," it read, "and the law is on her side." That night, their family WhatsApp group exploded with panic. Suddenly, Amara was not the jealous sister or forgotten daughter. She was now a stakeholder, and that meant they couldn't ignore her anymore. Caleb called. For the first time in over a year, he called. His voice was low, hesitant, unfamiliar. Amara, can we meet? He asked. But she didn't reply immediately. You needed a wedding hall full of applause, she finally said, her voice cracked but brave. I just needed one invitation. They met at a neutral cafe, no family, no emotions, just contracts, cups of coffee, and cold glances. You're really going through with this? Caleb asked. You're going to break the estate? You already broke the family, Amara whispered, staring at her tea. I'm just picking up what's left. In the end, she didn't ask for vengeance. She asked for clarity. The properties were reviewed, assets reevaluated, funds divided as they should have been. Amara walked away with her share, not just money, but truth, freedom, and the satisfaction of reclaiming her space in a world that had tried to delete her. Her mother called one evening, soft-voiced, older somehow. We never meant for this to happen, she said. You let it happen, Amara replied. And that's why I had to write my own ending. They offered a seat at the table now, but Amara declined. I built my own table, she said, and this time, I choose who sits with me. The city slowly learned her name again, not as Caleb's sister or the girl who was left out, but as Amara, resilient, silent, powerful. She started her own firm, named it Eclipsa for the eclipses they forced her to live through. Now she helped other women reclaim their stolen shares, their lost inheritance, their erased dignity. She didn't yell, she didn't destroy, she simply restored, because justice, when done right, doesn't need fireworks. It only needs truth and the quiet courage to deliver it. The house was quiet that morning, but inside her heart, 1,000 voices whispered strength into her soul. Clara didn't wake up with bitterness. She woke up with clarity and the firm resolve of purpose. She had already walked away from them, but now she would close the door completely. She picked up the last legal documents, signed them with a steady hand, and placed them in the envelope. This wasn't revenge, it was closure, written in ink and sealed with truth. A week had passed since the wedding. The pictures were now all over social media. Faces she once called family, smiling in a celebration she was erased from. But she didn't cry anymore, not because it didn't hurt, but because she had healed in the right way. The letter she wrote to her brother was not full of anger, but of everything he chose not to see. She wrote, You didn't just exclude me, you chose to validate silence over my loyalty. You picked convenience over truth, and it cost you a sister who loved you beyond words. The final move came when she sold her share in the ancestral property they inherited together. Her signature, once again, marked a boundary that would never be crossed again. Clara moved to another city, quiet, small, and peaceful. She opened a bookstore, where every shelf was a chapter of her new life. People came in for books, but stayed for the warmth she radiated. She had become the kind of woman who made others believe in healing. Months later, she received a letter from her mother. It was short, apologetic, but too late. Clara read it, smiled a little, and tucked it inside a drawer. There are wounds that apologies cannot fix. Only absence can remind us what we deserved all along. Her brother's marriage, it didn't last. Turns out betrayal doesn't make for strong foundations. He reached out once, but Clara didn't respond. She had nothing left to give to people who emptied her for years. She stood now, not as someone broken, but someone rebuilt with gold. The kind of strength only suffering teaches. In the end, she sat by the ocean, watching waves kiss the shore. A young girl walked up to her, asked if she could sit beside her. Clara smiled, nodded. The girl said, You look like you've seen pain. Clara replied, Yes, but I survived it, and then I turned it into peace. Moral of the story. Sometimes the ones we love the most are the ones who bury us the deepest. But the most powerful thing we can ever do is choose ourselves when others do not. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it simply means peace. Clara didn't take revenge. She took back her dignity, and that was far more powerful.